Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery. I'm your host, Andrew Mikhail, and welcome to my lovely abode. Come on in, take a seat, take your shoes off if you'd like. I'll start a fire, and we can get down like our ancestors did, you know? Talking face to face, even though this isn't face to face. This is me speaking to myself again in a studio by myself. But, by the way, no, I don't have a foot fetish. I know you're thinking it. I know you're like, this guy told me to take my shoes off. This motherfucker doesn't even know who I am. This is some weird metal dude who talks about the occult and gets fucking weird and spacey about space and all things mysterious. This motherfucker just told me to take off my shoes? You're goddamn right. Have some fucking respect. God damn it. Anyways, Mr. Mikhail's Manor of Mischief, Magic, and Mystery. Some of you might have already found this podcast just off of socials, but it's also called the 6M podcast. So if you guys want to reach out or ask any questions, make any comments, anything like that, you can either obviously just message me or hashtag the 6M podcast, not the number 6, but just SIX, or ask whatever, man. I think we're going to figure this out. It's still early. This is the second episode. I realize this podcast title, the name is kind of crazy for, I guess, just the normal podcast world. I was reading some forums and whatnot, and everyone's like, don't get too complicated with the title. You don't want to confuse people. And then I've already, updated the podcast to, Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn. And I'm like, well, that's great. I don't know if I could, go backwards, but this is what the podcast is called. Take it or leave it. If all else fails, if you're kind of, don't text and drive. But while you're stopped, if you want to look for the podcast for future reference, you can always type in an Andrew Mikhail podcast. And that should take you right to the show. Or you will also discover some podcasts that I've been a guest on. A lot of cool content out there. I almost said cool stuff in regards to that. So if you're not digging this podcast, check out some of the ones I've been on as a guest, and I can assure you a lot of entertainment will be had there, whether you're an artist or a cultist or just an average person just looking to kill some time and listening to me talk. There's a lot to find, so a lot's been happening since the last time we talked. A lot of updates in the Serpents camp. We actually just announced via Antichrist magazine. That's fucking metal, right? We're going to be doing, from what I hear, there's a little bit of confusion out there as to what we're actually doing. This is, we're going to be doing a Slayer cover. We're going to be doing Seasons in the Abyss for Antichrist magazine or Metal Zine's tribute to Slayer compilation album. So that's going to be featuring a bunch of bands from all over the world. It's an honor to be chosen. On the U.S. front, I'm sure there's other American bands. I haven't really looked at the list, but I was dead serious about getting Seasons in the Abyss because that song actually helped influence or craft the type of metal song I would love to write. So it is an absolute honor to be able to cover that. I believe it's going to be coming out early 2020. I'm not sure. Haven't really gotten any information on that, but we're working on that, working on another cover, something I have not announcing yet. Probably a deep cut that nobody listening to this will be like, oh yeah, that's fucking awesome. You know, I've statistically fucked up all of my cover ideas, and this is why I probably shouldn't manage my own band. Just because I do kind of offshoots or B-sides or deep cuts, or, you know, not the norm compared to some of the other bands in my realm, you know, doing pop covers into metal, or, you know, metal songs into black metal. Right. I don't know. I'm just not a fan of, you know, taking a song that's whatever, pretty good or well known, and like just blast beating all over it, or throwing a breakdown or two and then slapping my band's name on it and be like, here everybody, this is my interpretation of this song. Or not even that. I don't even think people do that anymore. I think they just say, here's our cover, check it out, enjoy it. And then like you check it out and it's like, oh fuck yeah, and then you listen to like the band's like discography or whatever, and you're like, oh, that was a good cover at least. I think that happened a couple times. I was really a big fan of those gent pop covers for a while, that I was like, man, this is like really good. Then I check out the band's discography and I'm like, not so good. So I'm gonna stick to these. But yeah, we got some new merch in the works as well. I know a lot of you guys are like, why the fuck is he talking about his band? Well, god damn it, where else am I going to talk about it? All right. Okay. So this previous Monday, we released a pre-order for a new long sleeve shirt. This is one of a few things that we're going to be releasing this winter, a part of our winter line. It's a killer long sleeve. We don't really do merch that often, so it's kind of exciting for us at least. We did this design with the same guy who did the Serpent's Tarot cards, Mark Erskine. He's a killer designer from Armenia. So if you guys are interested in his work, obviously check him out at Erskine, Erskine Designs. And at the time of this podcast recording, follow up with us on Monday, so the day after this podcast drops, for the new merch drop for this week, the second addition to our winter line. I'm really excited about this one. I'm actually excited about all of them, but just trying to blow out some like cool shit that I would wear, let alone you guys would wear. So if you guys saw it, if you guys think it's cool, obviously drop a line. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. And if you can, make sure to grab something. But one final announcement for this podcast is that we are loosely writing the next album, the follow-up to Temet Nose. So a lot of that, along with this podcast, has taken up a lot of my free time. Right now, I'm a career musician / podcaster. So obviously, if you guys feel inclined, come see us, anytime we're coming nearby. Right now, we don't have an agent. So right now, tour dates are fucking slim to none because, I'm doing booking, management, PR. Oh, we got a PR guy. So I'm doing a lot of work here. I'm trying to fucking do this podcast as well. So if you guys see that we're coming near you, come on out, fucking come hang out. Tell me you listen to the podcast. I'll probably be around drinking whiskey. And yeah, obviously support the band if you guys can. Follow us on Instagram at Serpents Metal. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com backslash or forward slash, I don't know, slash. How about that? We Are Serpents. Twitter is We Are Serpents. Our Bandcamp, where you can get our merch and the CDs and all the goodness, is weareserpents.bandcamp.com. And also you can find us at weareserpents.com. All right, that's enough of the shameless plugging. A lot of work happening in this camp. Which brings me to another subject. The Serpent's motto, so to speak, right? Labore et Constantia. It's Latin, right? Here's a little bit of that magic I was talking about. A little occult magic. Labore et Constantia is actually translated from Latin. There's a couple translations of it, but I think the most accurate, or accurate, little DJ Khaled reference, translation is by labor and constancy. Why is that Serpent's motto? Well, because we've been at it since about 2010, 2011. And we've been doing the same kind of shit music-wise. We've stuck to our guns in a sense. And, lots and lots of hard work. I mean, this podcast is like an extension of that. Basically, I want to reach out to all of you guys, and also I want newcomers to get into the band as well, because that's what this is all about, man. You guys are listening to the Andrew Mikhail podcast. Like, there is no Andrew Mikhail without the music. So, Labore et Constantia. This is also known as like an alchemist motto, right? So, for those of you who aren't aware of alchemy, it's basically an ancient practice that is essentially shrouded in mystery and secrecy, right? A lot of the alchemists or the ancient practitioners mainly sought out to turn lead into gold. And for people back then versus people now, I mean, gold is still a commodity. I mean, you fucking walk in the jewelry store and, you're lucky to walk out with your pants. But you could essentially see why they would want to keep that information hidden, or kind of like what the Freemasons do, right? Or any sort of secret society of whatever sorts. They kind of keep to themselves, and it's like, if you want that knowledge, you got to really dive in. Otherwise, you're going to have a bunch of people blowing themselves up. But, in simple terms, alchemists, basically, their goal was to find the stone of knowledge, which is the philosopher's stone, to discover the medium of eternal youth and health, and to discover the transmutation of metals. Hence, spiritual alchemy, where it's kind of the same thing, but it's more on an internal process. So with that, there are parallels to, the process of achieving the philosopher's stone or achieving youth and health, whether you're trying to cure a disease or try and find a cure for anything, or, there are certain plot points or steps. There you go. Finally, there's certain steps that one must go through to pretty much get to where they're going, get to the philosopher's stone, the gold, the magnum opus, which is Latin for the great work, which is what, Temet Nose was. That's what Pestilence was. That was what Born of Ishtar was. Those are, my attainments personally. And through that motto, through that school of thought, is basically how I got to a personal goal of attainment. And even some of you guys, might be working on fitness goals or goals attaining to work or, whatever. I mean, it really applies to a bunch of things, but me being a musician, that's kind of what I latched onto, and that's kind of what helped get me through the night or the rough nights, because let's be real, it's not easy. None of this is easy. And I am no expert, as I said on the past podcast, but I want to help. I want to help you guys. I want to help you guys navigate through this fucked up time in the world, whether you're talking about social media or the real world or whatever. I mean, everything's just kind of fucking in the air and just kind of open-ended, which is like, well, it's life, right? Life is not certain. I mean, nobody's really guaranteed that they're going to wake up tomorrow. I mean, including myself. But, I mean, shit has gotten so weird to the point that, like, I'll be sitting on the couch kind of faded or buzzed. For those of you who don't understand, let's just say intoxicated. And I'll just be like, what if a fucking black hole just opened up? And just reality just started fucking just shifting and morphing and getting like I often have these ideas, and sometimes I'll write songs harboring this fucking like fear. It's not a fear for myself. It's more of a fear for like humanity as a whole. I don't know. I'm not like an activist or anything, but I just like, I'll be out with my lady or, with the puppies or with the dogs. And I'll just be like, what if all of a sudden a bright, blinding light just came from the fucking window and it's done. You're done. Like, what if they drop the bomb on us, And by they, I don't mean anybody in particular. I just mean shit is fucking crazy. And I just feel like anything could happen. I feel like this is a fucking alternate reality. I mean, sometimes I feel that things that have happened in the past didn't even happen anymore. Like, when in the last episode I said, that guy is dead and gone. I honestly feel a disconnect from the person I am to the person I was, just based on that fact that I don't even feel like this is the world I grew up in. It's very strange. I mean, I'm hosting a podcast. Like, this is something, I didn't think I'd be doing, but goddamn, it's fun. But I mean, have you guys ever felt like that? Or is it just me? Or is it my fucking psychosis? Or hell, maybe it's the substance. But I honestly get that a lot. Or, somebody will leave the room or, whatever. And I'll just be like, in my head, like, what if this is the last time I see them? Did I say everything that needed to be said? Were we honest with each other? Was it a good time? But I guess that might be just me. I don't know. I have a lot of loose ends that are unable to be tied up, unfortunately. But, at least I gave it my shot, right? That's all you guys can really do is do your best. Fuck what everybody else is doing. Fuck anybody else's opinion. Like, you're the one that has to sleep with yourself and your mind and your thoughts, every night, right? And I have I subscribe to that school of thought where, they say, everyone dies alone. And I know it's kind of dark and it's kind of brooding and almost juvenile, but it's true. Like, I feel that is one thing that you will, that's one thing you will own in this life, your own death. Granted, someone might be the cause of death, but that is a ride that you get to take for yourself forever. Where you go after that, that's up for debate, right? That's the question of the ages, is where do we go when we die? But oddly enough, I get asked that question just being, I guess, who I am or what I stand for in terms of like the public's eyes. They're like, do you believe in heaven or hell? Do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus Christ? And I'm like, yeah, man, I believe that the guy existed. I'm sure he was a nice guy in terms of like what society standards were back then. I mean, remember, I'm Assyrian, which is like ancient era, kind of Middle Eastern, and we weren't the most kind of people. And I'm sure, if you open a history book, you'll learn a lot about a lot of different dynasties and how ruthless they were. I've written songs about it to kind of explain myself to people, or basically so people can stop asking me that question. But, in the shadow of timelessness, that song on Born of Ishtar, I basically say that heaven and hell is basically, God damn it, I gotta stop saying basically. Heaven and hell are what resides in your mind after you die. There's the whole, people talk about DMT and like, I've never done DMT. I probably should. I've never really done any psychedelics. And again, I probably should. But, they say when you die, DMT gets released, and in your mind, you basically go on a trip, and it's like your last goodbye from this world, like your parting gift. Now, there's a lot of different science and conflicting beliefs and whatnot, but in this song, I basically state that like a dream, what is in your mind or on your conscience when you die perpetuates throughout that dream, which could feel like an eternity for all we know. So if you're a good person in life, you're comfortable with yourself, you haven't done any wrong to people, you're probably going to have a nice trip and you're going to feel like you're in fucking heaven. If you're a piece of shit, if you're a fucking pedophile, fuck you, Jeffrey Epstein, stuff like that, you're probably going to have a bad trip. And it's probably going to feel like hell. If any of us know what hell feels like, I'm sure we've all had the imagination of what it would feel like thanks to all those books on it for all these years. But hey, that's my take on it. I was raised Christian Orthodox, and I'm sure, my family members are slamming their head on the table saying, what the fuck? We didn't raise you to be like this, but, that's part of the transformation. That's part of the process, the spiritual alchemy of sorts. I became a new person. I have a new outlook. I changed, as we should. A lot of people don't do that enough, right? We all have those people in our lives that kind of stick to what they do and they're content and whatever, let them do that. I mean, they're not doing anybody any harm, unless if they are doing anybody any harm. I hope that you guys bring the hammer of justice, not the gavel of justice, but the fucking hammer on them. But overall, I think we should just let people be people. And, I don't ever want anybody to think that, I'm preaching or I'm trying to convert anybody. I could give a shit what, you guys do with yourselves. I just want to help those who are like me that needed the help, and there was nobody there or nowhere to turn. And I've seen the damage that a lot of that religious conditioning or brainwashing can do to somebody or some people. And I needed another route. You guys might belong to a church or anything like that, that brings you fulfillment in life. That's great. And I'm happy for you. But please keep your comments to yourself. You're not going to save me. You're not going to convert me. Save your prayers, as I've heard it all, folks, and I've seen a lot, which has definitely jaded my perspective when it comes to, the holy man, so to speak. I've toured with a lot of Christian bands. I've played with a lot of Christian bands. A lot of the guys were cool. A lot of the guys lived up to expectation, but I've definitely can attest to a lot of those dudes doing some grimy shit and then getting on stage and literally taking the time out of their set to preach to people and also to fans of the bands I've been in, kind of like, unsolicited in my perspective, because it's like, if I buy a ticket to see a show and I want to see my favorite death metal band, deathcore, whatever, and like a Christian band's on, I get it. It's your platform. It's what you do. You're taking your moment, and that's great. But when you get off stage and you don't live up to that, and if anything, you're a shittier person than I am, and I'm the one who's looked at as like the evil motherfucker, then there's a problem. And that is exactly the kind of mischief that, this show can get into. And I'm not going to out anybody unless they were doing something illegal, like that piece of shit from Lost Prophets. And, none of us are perfect. I've definitely gotten into a little bit of my own mischief. But again, I'm not the one on stage preaching and basically telling everybody they're going down the wrong path. But get stoked for insert death metal band name here. They're going to fuck your shit up. It's like, okay, cool. Like, not everybody's trying to hear that, and that's kind of what birthed the approach for serpents, because the serpent, biblically is known as like a negative entity, but in the occult world, the serpent is known as like the great liberator. Like, without the serpent, Adam and Eve would not have known the choice, whether to eat the apple or be a slave for all eternity. So that's kind of like what I do, after living that life, so to speak, a part of that circus. I kind of felt like, these guys are cramming this message, down our throat, unsolicited. And I was like, well, where is the open-mindedness? Where's the conversation? Where's the dialogue? And that's partially, serpents, and it's partially this podcast. I don't feel the need to explain myself to anybody, including all the church people that come to my house and knock on my door, probably because I bought a preacher's house and put an upside down cross on the front and decorated the shit out of it for Halloween. But that's here nor there, right? But essentially that's why it's called, Mr. Mikhail's Manor of blah, 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 blah. I want my house. My house shall be the pyre. Drawing near, all ye weary wayfarers. I want this podcast or my albums to be the flair, essentially, and I want you all, or like-minded people, or those who are curious, to expand their consciousness or their selves or whatever, to come on in, have a seat, have an intellectual conversation, even if it's just me ranting for however long I've been ranting now. The dialogue needs to be there these days more than ever between all kinds of people. I mean, that's how we became a society. Right now, we're so used to this echo chamber, where if you have this one viewpoint and then you voice it, and if anybody else has an opposing viewpoint, you automatically go on the defensive and you start labeling people as an ist or an or whatever, and is only causing problems and just an overall dissonance amongst society. Like, if anybody believes in like energy or like waveforms or anything that of like living beings, everything right now is just like dissonant and just like causing friction and frequencies, and it's just, I don't know, man. That's what I'm saying. Like I said earlier, just everything's super weird now, and it makes me feel like it's a dream or even a simulation. We live in a simulation. And hell, I mean, we might even really live in a simulation. I know Rick and Morty fucking dove into that shit a bunch of times. I mean, we could all be playing a video game right now, just like in that Rick and Morty episode. When you fucking die, you might be another being, you know, living out a life you wish you would have lived out. I don't know. Maybe you're doing it all over again, over and over and over again. That's one of my favorite theories of mine. It's probably published somewhere these days. I mean, I've had this theory for a long time, but with the Big Bang, you know, pushing time one way, you know, there's that theory of the, I think it's called the Big Collapse or something, but basically like a fluctuation where everything goes out and it goes in, like almost like breathing, right? Like your lungs. I feel like most of all, I feel that we live this life over and over and over and over and over again for eternity. And that could also be considered like heaven or hell. Like, did you have a good life? Did you have a bad life? Well, guess what? You're going to live it over and over and over again. So I hope you like it. Otherwise, start changing it up. Start respecting yourself. Start respecting your time, your life. Each minute, you should be learning something new. You should be working towards a goal of some sort. And I'm not talking about, you know, the American dream, you know, the money, the wife or the husband and the house. There's more to life than that. There's more to life than money. Money is man-made. Time is man-made. You don't want to spend an eternity doing the same thing over and over and over again. Have I said over and over and over again too much? Have I said it enough? I don't know. But it's my house, and I could say what the fuck I want. And my will be done. That's exactly what you guys should be living your life like. Respect yourself as you would a god, because we are all gods in some way or another. We all manifest our own reality, our own universe, and we all can create and destroy just like a god would. So, what is your will? That is something you should ponder on your drive home from Mr. Mikhail's Manor. All right. Before we wrap this episode up, we have a question from Instagram, it seems. Believe the name is... we got a question from Evil Danny LP82 with a bunch of symbols in it. She, I believe, asks, what's the most evil thing you have ever done, with a bunch of devil emojis? Danny, thank you for asking. Appreciate your allegiance to serpents and to the 6M podcast. And evil is subjective, right? You're talking to an occultist, so we have a little bit of a skewed perspective on what others may think is evil. So I'll give it to you like this. I'll give you mind, body, spirit, right? So for the body, the most evil thing I've ever done in the traditional sense is have sexual relations involving the anus with a preacher's daughter on the terms that it would be exciting, being that she was a preacher's daughter and I was a heretic of sorts. Her idea, not mine, but I definitely participated in that debauchery, which I highly recommend any consenting adults out there in the same sort of situation, at least try once. It's truly breathtaking. But for the mind, I would say, again, in the traditional sense, this is kind of a cop-out, but the most evil thing I've ever done is dive in as deep as I've dove into certain occult practices or schools of thought or beliefs or mantras, rituals, whatever you want to say. That, again, in the traditional sense, is like the most evil thing I've done with the mind. But as far as the spirit goes, what's the most evil thing I've done to the spirit? Is basically limit myself, imprison myself in my old skin for many, 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 many years, which I have since forgiven myself for such atrocious acts upon my spirit. But yeah, kind of not a juicy question because honestly, like, I want to say I'm a decent person, but what's evil to me might not be evil to you. What's evil to you might not be evil to me. Again, it's subjective, but if you stick around and keep listening to this podcast, I'm sure some of these stories I'm going to be telling, like from my life and the past, probably will be big contenders as far as better answers to this question. So I hope that satiated your curiosity on the matter, Danny. All right, so this next question is more of a group question because I've personally been getting hit up, which is great. I appreciate that. But I've been getting asked here and there if we're going to be running any, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, whatever sales this weekend. And I think I'm going to take to the internet on this subject, but I wanted to explain it a little bit further in the podcast. We're basically going to be boycotting Black Friday. I know that's kind of it's kind of cringy to say. I'm not trying to martyr myself in any way, but I've decided on behalf of the band to not partake in Black Friday, Cyber Monday, anything like that this year, just because in all actuality, as a small running business on a global scale, doing such a sale or little event like this would actually be counterintuitive for us. For all of you guys that, are around all year round, we usually do sales here and there just to help promote, products and also further, the band's livelihood. Like, we're a self-sustaining machine. And to be totally honest with you guys, since this is the podcast and, I'm trying to be as open as I can be, any sale that I run or we run for Serpent stuff, we actually lose money on any sale because, our prices are already pretty low. And knowing, when I make a sale go live, I already know that I'm going to be losing money off of shipping costs, production costs, other various things that might pop up, whether if I'm shipping overseas. It all kind of comes out of pocket, but, as a broke metal fan or music lover, I know the struggle personally. Sometimes I see some killer merch. I know Dimmu Borgir just re-released some of their old school merch, and I've been like really fucking fiending for that, but I can't afford it, and I know that there's many, many, many people like me that are out there, some eyeing our merch, they love the band and they love the merch and they just can't afford it. So I just take it on with a smile, and I'm willing to, take the hit here and there just to give that opportunity to somebody. It would mean the world to them as it would mean the world to me. And, being that we don't have a team, a manager, stuff like that yet, we can take those hits, and that's fine. Because then we don't have to up the cost of our merch, all year round in order to do a Black Friday sale or whatever sale, because, we're pretty much independent, right? So it's not an elitist kind of standpoint. I know some might see it as kind of like a malicious move against, our supporters, but I think it's actually quite the opposite. I care about metal. I care about you guys. And I care about just humanity. And honestly, the ugliness that comes from Black Friday or any of those holidays, I don't want to be a part of it. I think it's time that, the independents stop trying to mimic, the major corporations, the major retailers. I know, guys. I know it's hard to make a living out there. I'm not judging you for, doing a sale or, shit. One of our vendors, merchnow.com, they're doing a Black Friday sale, and that's fine. They got they got bills to pay too. But as far as Serpents, I believe that running such a sale or anything like that cheapens what we're doing here. And being that everything you see from Serpents comes from us, it's made by us. That fact alone gives it some sort of artistic integrity, or hell, it gives it a fucking soul. When you get anything from us, not only are you getting it literally from my hands, but you're getting 10 years of passion. You're getting 10 years of fucking blood, sweat, and tears. You're getting 10 years of just a labor of love, man. Ask yourself that. Ask yourself if you're getting that the next time you camp out in front of a store just for, the best deal on a TV, or, you get punched in the fucking mouth for a waffle maker, or you fucking drop kick a toddler for some sort of toy that, it's going to be cool for like 3 weeks. And then next thing you know, that thing's going to be on the floor all for the rest of the year. And, ask yourself, was that worth it? I don't think people really understand what they're doing to themselves as a society, because these corporations, they love it. They feed off of seeing you guys fucking slit each other's throat. If anything, that gives the think tank something to work towards for next year. They see these videos, they're like, oh man, look, people love our products so much, they're willing to do this. We got to up the ante next year. If these corporations could make commercials out of compilation videos from Black Friday brawls, I think they would. I think they would, because they don't give a shit about you. And that's why I don't think, personally, the metal community should, echo their actions. But, hey, maybe that's the reason why we've been kind of stuck here as an independent. Maybe it's not. Who knows? Who knows? But until the day comes where we have an infrastructure behind us, supporting us, and, we'd have to play ball, right? To take care of the people that take care of us. I'm willing to take the stand and say, fuck this Black Friday shit, and fuck those corporations. They do nothing but harm to the environment, harm to society, and harm to the products they sell for dirt cheap. And who knows, maybe the day might come where this might catch on and we don't have to do this. We don't have to take such a radical, hardline stance against this fucking insanity. But I just want to make that clear that, to the industry and to our friends and fans alike, we gotta take care of our baby. We gotta look out for our best interests, and we gotta look out for our friends, fans, and initiates, so that you guys can have a calm, peaceful holiday, Thanksgiving holiday with your friends and family, without having to worry about rushing to your phone or rushing to a website to get the best deal on our stuff, at least. So that's the least we can do for you guys. Now, as far as the calm and peaceful aspect of the holiday, that's strictly up to you guys. As we know, things can get pretty dicey with the parentals or the family units. So that, unfortunately, is up to you guys. But at least you can rest well knowing that we had your best interest in mind this holiday. So, well, folks, it's about time you guys head on home. Thank you guys for stopping by to the manor. Again, this is still early on in the progression of the podcast. So, again, if you guys have any burning questions or suggestions or whatever, anything you guys got, feel free to reach out. Feel free to, tag or hashtag the 6M podcast, or just, comment on any of the stuff and just tell me what your guys' questions are. What do you guys think? I appreciate all input. And I would love to feature your music. If any of you guys are in a band, that wants your tunes on the podcast, please feel free to reach out as well. I don't have the legal reach to just play, any band, any whatever I like without reaching out to the label and stuff. And it can get pretty dicey at that point. So maybe one day we'll get there, but right now we're going to shed a light on some bands that I think deserve a little bit of due. And I am very pleased to play this next track from the Michigan band Heart of Jordan. Now, it might be a little bit different as far as what you guys expect me to be playing, being a black metal, death metal, whatever the fuck you guys want to call it, guy. I really enjoy this band. If you guys like Killswitch Engage or, All That Remains or Bad Wolves, shout out to Doc Coyle. I think you guys would really like this band, and I really think that they are on the rise big time. They just released a new video for this track on Alternative Press, and I am shocked and in awe at the fact that these guys wore serpent shirts. Not everybody, but a couple guys wore serpent shirts in the video. And just for that simple gesture, I am grateful beyond belief. So, on that note, we're going to be playing Echoes Still Remain off of their album, Heart of Jordan. It's the name of their band, duh. So, it's self-titled. You can find them on Facebook. Actually, I implore you to go find them on Facebook at facebook.com/Heart of Jordan Band. Follow them on Instagram at Heart of Jordan Band. Same thing with Twitter, Heart of Jordan, and YouTube. Check them out, Heart of Jordan. You guys get it, right? On that note, we're going to play this track, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. See you guys next week.